This is not a hatchet job by somebody that hates the Catholic Church. I was born Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I loved the Catholic Church. I was an altar boy. From the time I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a priest. Celibacy simply means you can't marry. It doesn't mean you can't have sexual relations. Abortions and infanticide were epidemic in convents and monasteries to cover up the sexual activities of the clergy. I had a professor in one of my theology courses who told me, essentially, and this guy was a priest, he had a doctorate degree, and he said that if I wanted to be like Christ, which of course every priest is supposed to be Christ-like, that what I needed to do is do what Christ did. That made sense. And so I said, okay, what does that mean? And he says, well, you've got to realize that after Jesus was an adult, he went and spent many years studying the occult. He went off to Egypt, he went off to India, studied with the gurus, he went to Tibet, and that's where he got all of these powers, was by studying these with these occult masters in these various places.
This is the real agenda right here. This is the real story. There's the American flag, subservient to the Vatican. They're flying the Vatican flag. He is on this Cardinal Dolan, Timothy Dolan. This guy's a very, extremely powerful Catholic, one of the most powerful Catholics in America right now. But notice the stand here. It's kind of like these two are almost like at attention militarily, and he's kind of at the parade rest or whatever. Thought that was interesting. But notice also the circle of light there above his head, like he's the saint. And here's the two little servants of the Vatican.
So in Catholicism, we find the half moon or the sickle moon where the deity is in them. We find Mary replacing Jesus Christ as the mediatrix of all graces. The mediator, the sole mediator and advocate, is replaced by Mary. So here in this Roman Catholic monastery, Christ puts the crown of thorns onto Mary, and she has the holes in her hands. Mary is always depicted as coming out of a cave. Now, the ancient deities always came out of a cave. Loyola, the Jesuit, received all his information in a cave, and it is interesting that Muhammad received all of his information in a cave. That's paganism.
Part of Aleister Crowley's so-called sex magic included orgies with little boys whom Crowley molested. Crowley taught that in order for the new eon of Antichrist to be established, he had to initiate the world into homosexuality. Crowley began by implementing many of his homosexual sex magic rituals into a secret order called the OTO. The musical group White Stains named themselves after erotic homosexual poetry written by Aleister Crowley, which Crowley grossly entitled White Stain. You're about to see startling evidence that Crowley had as much influence on the world with his sex revolution as he did with the drug revolution. Aleister Crowley knew that if he was to establish the new age of Antichrist, he would have to destroy God's design for family, consisting of men and women as husband and wife. Crowley therefore declared in his book Magic Without Tears that family was public enemy number one. Crowley, who was out to destroy the family, said this, quote, "Think what horrid images it evokes from the mind. Not only Victorian, wherever the family has been strong, it has always been an engine of tyranny. Curse them. They are always in the way. To the performance of this work, speaking of the new age, the nearest obstacle and the most obvious is the family."
It would seem that the New World Order would hate Trump to be the next president of America, but he said a few things at this event which makes me think that he's just one of them.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias, to defend religious liberty, and to create a culture that celebrates life.
And then he goes on to say this.
And we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.
You got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
As you can see right there, he suffers from a chronic condition that impairs movement of his arms.
Don't like, I don't remember.
And we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. And we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. Go back to Univision. And we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. It's calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. They have no respect for human life.
The summer residence of the Pope in Castel Gandolfo, just south of Rome. Inside the two domes perched atop the papal palace are the Vatican's telescopes. The Astronomers' Lodge in a former monastery. Many of the researchers at the Specula Vaticana are Jesuit priests.
I was educated in a boarding school led by Jesuits. 3 years we had to translate parts of the Bible from one language into the other. In the first book of Moses, the Lord descends from the heaven down to earth on a holy mountain with smoke and fire and loud noise and trembling, and everyone was afraid. That was the moment where I said, this is not God. What are we talking about? My God does not need a vehicle in which to move around, which trembles and makes smoke and loud noise. And it was the Jesuit priest who said, Eric, maybe you should read a book of Enoch.
In the scriptures that we Jews and Christians and Muslims cherish, in the scriptures that we Jews and Christians and Muslims cherish, in the scriptures that we Jews and Christians and Muslims cherish,
Got to come together as he puts up 666.
Not only as a nation, but as a world community.
Come together not only as a nation, but as a world community. He just called for the New World Order, people.
And the great religious leaders here tonight give us all an example that we can follow.
So Trump has been coming here his whole life, apparently, according to this statement here.
But I have great memories of coming to this dinner with my father over the years when I was a young man. Great experience for me.
So this guy, Trump, is definitely on the payroll of Rome. Something odd here happens that I thought was worth mentioning. The camera switches to Trump, and the cardinal standing next to him starts swaying and nudges Trump. So I just thought I'd point this out. Check it out.
So the only way to make America great again is not primarily with the ballot box. It is for people to get on their knees and pray that God would intervene in this situation, in the way things are unfolding, because these nations once respected God, but now they're striving after what's wrong, what's evil, what's sinful. And no man, including Donald Trump, is going to single-handedly save or redeem a nation that is turning away from God. Don't make this political. I'm really surprised that 30% of truthers on the main channel made this political. This is nothing to do with politics. This is to do with a spiritual war. This is to do with the Bible. It's to do with prophecy. And we need to pray. That's all we can do. Please don't ask my advice on who or whether you should vote, because that's between you and God. It's your own choice to make. But I'm just trying to warn people that this agenda goes far deeper than it looks. Don't just jump on someone charismatic who comes onto the scene and says everything that our itching ears want to hear, because this is how the trick works. They play society. They play on people's emotions, and it's dangerous.
All right. If you're falling for this Vatican psyop type of a thing, that, oh, he's so much better than she's going to be. He's the first man I've ever heard running for president that said we need to stop anti-Catholic bias. We need to fight against that. I never heard anybody else say that. But you're not convinced, are you? You just got that little ray of hope. Well, I just can't think what would happen if Hillary would get in. I just can't think. Yeah, sure. You need to get right with God, people. Persecution is almost at our doorstep now.